This is an installation resistance tester. It's commonly known as a mega in the trade. It's used to test all new wiring before we connect it up to the supply, which is a requirement of the Australian wiring rules. Before you use this meter, you've got to check to make sure it's in proper operating condition. Before using the meter, the first step is to ensure that the batteries are in good condition. So to check the batteries, I'll alter this selector switch around to the bat check position. That's ready now to check the batteries. I'm going to operate the test button and look at the pointer and make sure that it goes up across the very bottom scale there that says bat good. So I'll press the test button, hold it for a couple of seconds. That pointer's gone up across that scale. It hasn't moved, so that tells me that the batteries in this meter are in good operating condition. The next step is to check each of the scales that we're going to use. I'll start off by changing the selector switch to the 3 ohm scale. That means when I look at the meter, because it's pointing at a blue portion of the scale, it'll be one of the blue scales. I'm on the 3 ohms range, so I look for the blue scale that's got 0 at one end and has a 3 up at the other end. So it's that first blue scale inside the mirror. The first step I have to do now is make sure that the meter is reading correctly when the leads are apart. So I've got the 2 leads for the meter. They're apart from each other, so I'm trying to measure the resistance between these 2 leads. They're open circuited. It'll be somewhere around infinity ohms, which means it should indicate a value of greater than 3 ohms. Operate your test button. I'm looking at the 3 ohms range. The pointer is saying it is far greater than 3 ohms, which is what we expect to see. So it looks like it's working okay at the moment. While still on the same scale, short your leads together. So I've got the 2 leads joined together now. So the meter is going to be measuring the resistance of the leads, which is a very low value. It should be approximately 0 ohms. Operate the test button. I can twist that and lock it in the on position. And we can see there is a little bit of resistance being indicated. On the other side of the meter, there is a ohms 0 adjust control. I can turn that around and that will move the pointer and make it actually read exactly 0 ohms. Now I've got that set, that meter's right to use on that scale. I'm going to use a couple of other scales as well, so I'll check those scales while we're at it. I'm going to use the 500 ohm scale. So I've set the selector switch to the 500 ohms. Once again, it's a blue scale, but the one that ends at 500 ohms. So the very inside blue scale is the one that goes from 0 up to 500 ohms. I'll repeat that process, and then I've got the leads separated, they're apart now. So the resistance reading should be a lot higher than 500 ohms. Operate the test button, and once again the pointer has gone up to past 500 ohms, so that's looking correct. I'll now short the leads together. Once again, I'm just reading the resistance of the leads now. It should be approximately 0 ohms. Remember, we're reading the inside blue scale now, and there it is indicating 0 ohms. If that wasn't quite 0 ohms, once again, I'd just adjust the control knob to make sure it does read 0 ohms. The last scale we're going to use is the 500 volt scale. I've changed the selector switch up to the 500 volts. The meter's still reading a value of resistance in ohms. It'll actually read in mega ohms now. It does mean the meter is putting out 500 volts when it does this test. Like the previous 2 examples, I've got the leads apart, so the resistance between the leads should be infinity. I'm on a red scale. It is the very outside scale. On the red scale, the numbers are reversed to the blue scales in that the 0 is down at the very right hand end and the high values up to infinity are at the left hand end of the scale. Leads are apart. I'm expecting to see infinity megohms on that pink scale. Push the button. The pointer is up at the very high end of the scale, so it looks like it's still working correctly. Release the button, join the leads together again. So now I'm just measuring the resistance of the leads. It's going to be virtually 0 ohms. Operate the test button, reading the pink scale, and there's a pointer going across to the 0. It's worth noting at this stage that the ohms 0 adjustment does not operate on the 500 volt or mega ohm scale. It is only useful for on the ohms ranges. We've proven now that our meter is in proper operating condition and we're ready to start performing some tests with it.